an original narrative, created especially for Shadows of Love. Alessandra's fingers trembled as she held the phone to her ear, Italian words flowing from her lips like a secret she'd been keeping far too long. Across the dimly lit restaurant, Dante Salvatore went perfectly still, his dark eyes finding her, with an intensity that made the air between them charged and dangerous. The Mafia boss's gaze lingered on the tears she quickly brushed away, on the straightening of her shoulders as she composed herself, on the quiet strength that resonated in her final, "Ti amo, Nonna." When she slipped the phone back into her pocket, she had no idea that this one vulnerable moment had changed everything, that the most powerful man in the room had recognized something in her he couldn't afford to want, yet couldn't bear to lose. Alessandra Ricci wiped down the bar counter with practiced efficiency, her movements automatic after months. Veludo, one of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurants. Tonight was like any other. Wealthy patrons in designer clothing, hushed conversations about business deals, and the constant pressure to be invisible, yet impeccable. The private dining room behind her housed tonight's most important guests. She didn't know their names, but she recognized power when she saw it, especially in the man at the head of the table. Dark-haired, impeccably dressed, with a stillness about him that made others lean forward when he spoke. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. Normally, she'd ignore it during her shift, but the hospital's number flashed on the screen. Her heart dropped. "I need to take this," she whispered to Marco, the head bartender. "Cover for me." She slipped into the narrow hallway near the kitchen, answering with a quiet, "Hello." The nurse's voice was gentle but direct. "Your grandmother is asking for you, Miss Ricci. Her condition has deteriorated rapidly in the last hour." The world tilted beneath Alessandra's feet. "How long?" she managed. "Days, perhaps. I'm sorry." Without thinking, Alessandra switched to Italian, her native tongue flowing naturally in her distress. "Posso parlare con lei, per favore?" There was rustling. Then her grandmother's frail voice came through. "Alessandra, mia cara." "Nonna," she whispered, tears forming. "Sono qui. Come stai?" Their conversation was brief, her grandmother's strength limited. Alessandra promised to come soon, to find a way to reach her in Italy, though she had no idea how she would afford the ticket. "Ti amo, Nonna," she said finally, her voice breaking. "Ti amo più della vita stessa," her grandmother replied. "I love you more than life itself." When she ended the call, Alessandra took a deep breath, composing herself before returning to work. She couldn't afford to lose this job. Not now. She didn't notice that the private dining room had fallen completely silent during her call. Didn't notice the dark eyes that had tracked her every movement, registered every word. Noted the grief she tried to hide behind her professional smile. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. The private party continued late into the night, their laughter and conversation a distant backdrop to the hollow ache in her chest. How would she get to Italy? Her savings wouldn't cover half the airfare, and her grandmother had days, not weeks. It was nearly midnight when Marco approached her, his expression uncomfortable. "The gentleman from the private room wants to see you," he said, nodding toward the back office, usually reserved for the owner. "Me? Why?" Alessandra asked. Marco shrugged. He didn't say. But when Dante Salvatore asks, you don't question. The name meant nothing to her, but the reverence in Marco's voice told her enough. Salvatore. She'd heard whispers about the family that controlled much of the city's underground economy. "I'll be right there," she said, smoothing her black uniform dress. She knocked once on the office door. "Enter," came the reply, the voice low and measured. The man from the head of the table sat behind the desk, jacket removed, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. His presence seemed to make the room smaller. "Miss Ricci," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. "Please sit." She remained standing. "How do you know my name?" A slight smile touched his lips. "I know many things about you, Alessandra. I know you moved here from Naples 5 years ago. I know you've been working 3 jobs to support yourself and send money to your grandmother in Italy. I know she raised you after your parents died." Cold fear slid down her spine. "Who are you?" "Dante Salvatore." He stood, and despite his average height, his presence seemed to fill the room. "I have a proposition for you." I'm not interested in any proposition from someone who's had me investigated, she said, turning to leave. Your grandmother has stage 4 cancer, he said quietly. The hospital in Naples can't do much more for her. Alessandra froze, her hand on the doorknob. I'm traveling to Italy tomorrow, he continued. I need a translator for some sensitive business matters, someone fluent in the Neapolitan dialect, as well as standard Italian. She turned slowly. And you think that's me? I know it's you. His dark eyes held hers. 2 weeks. Generously compensated. First-class travel arrangements. Why me? There are professional translators. I require discretion and loyalty above credentials. He stepped closer. You need to reach your grandmother. I'm offering you the means to do so. She studied him. This dangerous man who somehow knew everything about her. What's the real reason? Something flickered in his gaze, surprise, perhaps that she dared question him. Consider my offer, he said instead of answering. I leave at noon tomorrow. My driver will wait outside your apartment at 11. I haven't agreed to anything. Yet, he said simply. But you will, because some choices aren't choices at all. Are they, Alessandra? Alessandra barely slept that night. Her tiny apartment felt like a cage as she paced, weighing impossible options. How had Dante Salvatore known so much about her? Why had he singled her out? And most importantly, could she trust him? By morning, exhaustion had settled into her bones, but her decision was made. She had exactly $2,347 in savings. Not nearly enough for an emergency flight to Italy, and the time off work. Her grandmother had days left. There was no real choice. At precisely 11, a black SUV with tinted windows idled outside her building. The driver, a broad-shouldered man with watchful eyes, nodded once. Miss Ricci, Mr. Salvatore is expecting you. Her small suitcase felt inadequate as she slid into the leather back seat. The car moved smoothly through Manhattan traffic toward a private airfield in New Jersey. Dante Salvatore waited beside a sleek private jet, talking quietly with 2 men whose stances screamed security. When he saw her, he dismissed them with a slight gesture. You made the right decision. As if there had never been any doubt. Did I? She met his gaze directly. I still don't understand why you want me specifically. Understanding isn't required. Compliance is. I'm not one of your employees, Mr. Salvatore. Something like amusement flickered across his face. No, you're not. On the jet, he handed her a folder. Your contract. The terms are generous. Alessandra scanned the document. A 2-week engagement as a translator and cultural consultant, with a compensation package that made her eyes widen. It was more money than she'd make in 6 months at the restaurant. This is excessive for translation services, she said. The nature of the work requires discretion. You'll be compensated accordingly. He watched her closely. There's also a non-disclosure agreement. She hesitated, pen hovering over the signature line. What exactly am I translating? Business negotiations. Nothing that should trouble your conscience. You don't know what troubles my conscience. His dark eyes held hers for a beat too long. Perhaps not. But I know desperation when I see it. The words stung with truth. She signed. As the jet prepared for takeoff, Dante handed her another document, a detailed medical file. Your grandmother has been transferred to a private clinic in Naples, he said. The best oncology team in southern Italy has been consulted. Alessandra stared at him, stunned. You arranged this. When? Last night. Why would you do that? He looked away, his profile sharp against the window. Consider it an advance on your services. The flight was 9 hours of tense silence. Dante worked on his laptop, while Alessandra tried to process the situation she'd walked into. Occasionally she caught him watching her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. When they landed in Naples, another black car awaited them. The clinic first, Dante instructed the driver, surprising her. The private medical facility was modern and quiet. A doctor greeted them immediately, speaking rapid Italian about her grandmother's condition. The cancer had spread, but they were making her comfortable. You have time with her, the doctor assured Alessandra. Days, perhaps a week. Thank you, she whispered, then turned to Dante. I don't understand why you're doing this. You'll earn it, he replied simply. Her grandmother's room was filled with sunlight and flowers. The old woman looked small against the white sheets, but her eyes brightened when she saw Alessandra. "Mia cara," she whispered. Alessandra rushed to her side, taking her fragile hand. "Nonna, I'm here." They spoke softly in Italian, her grandmother's voice weak but clear. When she asked how Alessandra had managed to come so quickly, she hesitated. "I found work here. Temporary." Her grandmother's wise eyes studied her face. "What kind of work?" "Translation. For a businessman." She glanced toward the door, where Dante waited in the hallway, his back to them, following her gaze. Her grandmother frowned. "Chi è quell'uomo?" "My employer." The old woman's grip tightened suddenly. "Be careful, Alessandra. I recognize power when I see it. And that man, he carries it like others carry weapons. I'll be fine, Nonna. Promise me you'll protect yourself." "I promise." Later, as they left the clinic, Alessandra felt Dante's eyes on her. "Thank you," she said stiffly, "for arranging this." He nodded once. "We leave for the villa now. Tomorrow, work begins." In the car, she finally asked the question burning inside her. "What do you really want from me, Mr. Salvatore?" His gaze was impenetrable. "Your skills, your discretion, your loyalty. You could have hired anyone for that." The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. "Not anyone, Alessandra, just you." The Salvatore family villa, perched on the Amalfi coast, like a fortress disguised as paradise. Bougainvillea cascaded over stone walls, and the Mediterranean stretched endlessly below. Armed guards patrolled discreetly, their presence a reminder that beauty and danger often coexisted. Alessandra was shown to a suite that overlooked the sea. The luxury was disorienting after her cramped New York apartment. A 4-poster bed, marble bathroom, and a terrace where the scent of lemon trees drifted on the breeze. A soft knock came at her door. A woman introduced herself as Sophia, Dante's assistant. "Mr. Salvatore requests your presence for dinner in 1 hour," she said. "I've brought some suitable clothing." The suitable clothing turned out to be an elegant navy dress that fit Alessandra perfectly. "How did he know my size?" she asked. Sophia's expression remained neutral. "Mr. Salvatore is thorough." Dinner was served on the terrace. Dante waited for her, standing as she approached. For a moment, something unguarded flashed across his face. Appreciation, perhaps, or something deeper. "The dress suits you," he said. "It's unsettling that you know so much about me, while I know almost nothing about you." He gestured for her to sit. "What would you like to know?" "The truth. Why am I here?" He studied her over the rim of his wineglass. "Tomorrow night, I'm hosting a dinner with several business associates. The conversations will shift between Italian dialects, some deliberately to exclude others. I need someone who can follow every nuance. That doesn't explain the excessive compensation or why you investigated me. I investigate everyone who enters my orbit." The admission should have frightened her, but something in his tone suggested it was as much protection as control. "And my grandmother's medical care," she pressed. His expression softened almost imperceptibly. "I lost my own Nonna when I was young. She was everything." The unexpected vulnerability in his voice caught her off guard. Before she could respond, his phone rang. He answered with a curt "Salvatore," then switched to rapid Neapolitan dialect so colloquial that even Alessandra struggled to follow. The next morning, Dante took her to visit her grandmother again. To her surprise, he went in with her, speaking gently to the old woman in perfect Italian. He asked about her comfort, whether she needed anything, treating her with a respect that seemed at odds with his reputation. When her grandmother dozed off, they stepped into the hallway. "The specialists say the new pain management protocol is working," he told her. "You didn't have to do this," Alessandra said quietly. "No," he agreed, "I didn't." In the car, she studied his profile. "You speak perfect Italian. You don't need a translator." A slight smile touched his lips. "There are many forms of translation, Alessandra. Language is only one." That evening, she found him in his study, surrounded by papers. He looked up when she entered. His guard momentarily lowered. In that unguarded moment, she glimpsed not the feared Mafia boss, but a man carrying invisible burdens. "The dinner tomorrow," she began. "What exactly am I listening for?" "Betrayal," he said simply. "It has a particular cadence, and if I hear it, signal me. Touch your earring twice." She hesitated. "These business associates, They're dangerous men. Yes, his honesty was startling, as am I. Yet you've shown kindness to my grandmother, to me. Something shifted in his expression. Don't mistake selective compassion for weakness, Alessandra. I don't, she said quietly. I'm just trying to understand the man behind the reputation. He stood, moving around the desk until he was close enough that she could smell his cologne. Subtle, expensive. Some things aren't meant to be understood, he said, his voice low, only experienced. The air between them seemed to thicken. For a heartbeat, she thought he might touch her, and more surprisingly, she realized she wanted him to. Instead, he stepped back, control reasserting itself. Get some rest. Tomorrow will test us both. As she turned to leave, he added, Alessandra. She paused at the door. Whatever you hear tomorrow night, whatever you learn about me or my business, remember that I brought you to your grandmother. Remember that I kept my word. It sounded like both a plea and a warning. She nodded once before slipping away, wondering which was more dangerous, the power Dante wielded in his world, or the growing connection between them that neither had anticipated. The villa transformed for the business dinner. Security doubled, staff moved with practiced precision, and tension hummed beneath the polished surfaces. Alessandra wore another dress provided for her, deep burgundy, elegant enough for the company, but subtle enough to fade into the background when necessary. Dante found her on the terrace, watching the sunset. Something in his expression changed when he saw her, a softening around the eyes, quickly masked. You look beautiful, he said, his voice low. I look the part you need me to play, she corrected. His mouth quirked. Perhaps both are true. He offered her a small earpiece. Wear this. Stay close enough to hear everything, but not so close that you draw attention. Who will be there tonight? Business partners from across Italy, family representatives from Milan, Rome, Sicily. His eyes held hers. One in particular, Marco Vannucci, has been making moves that concern me. You think he's betraying you? I think he's speaking one truth to my face and another behind my back. Dante's hand brushed her arm, a fleeting touch that sent warmth through her. Trust your instincts tonight. You hear things others miss. The dinner began at 8. 5 men and 2 women, all exuding the same controlled power as Dante, gathered in the formal dining room. Alessandra moved quietly among them, serving wine, appearing to be just another staff member while absorbing every word. Marco Vannucci was immediately apparent, younger than the others, with sharp features and restless energy. He spoke perfect northern Italian when addressing the table, but switched to Sicilian dialect with his associate beside him. Salvatore thinks he controls the port contracts, he murmured in dialect, not realizing Alessandra understood every word as she refilled his glass. By next week, he'll learn otherwise. She moved away casually, circling the table until she stood behind Dante. When he glanced up, she touched her earring twice. His expression never changed, but she felt the shift in him, a predator alerted to danger. The conversation flowed through multiple courses, touching on shipping routes, property developments, and political connections. On the surface, it was legitimate business talk. Beneath ran currents of power, territory, and veiled threats. When Vannucci proposed a toast to new partnerships, Dante smiled with cold precision. To loyalty, he countered. The rarest commodity of all. His eyes met Alessandra's briefly across the room. Something passed between them. Understanding, connection, warning. After dinner, the guests moved to the library for drinks. Alessandra slipped away to the kitchen for a moment's respite, her mind racing with all she'd heard. Vannucci was planning something significant, a betrayal involving the port contracts that were clearly crucial to Dante's operations. She was so lost in thought that she didn't hear the footsteps until Vannucci's voice came from behind her. You're not just staff, are you? He said in Italian. She turned, composing her features. I serve Mr. Salvatore's guests, nothing more. Vannucci stepped closer, invading her space. I saw how he looks at you, how you communicate without words. His fingers brushed her wrist. Perhaps you'd be more valuable serving different interests. I don't know what you mean, she said, pulling away. I think you do. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Salvatore's weakness is finally showing. First his grandmother's illness, now you. Her blood ran cold. You should rejoin the other guests. Tell me what he's planning for the Napoli shipment. Vannucci pressed. I can make it worth your while. Everything all right here? Dante stood in the doorway, his posture relaxed but his eyes deadly. Vannucci stepped back, smiling easily. Just complimenting your staff on the excellent service. Alessandra is not staff. She's my personal assistant, and under my protection. Dante's voice was soft, which somehow made it more menacing. Remember that. When Vannucci rejoined the others, Dante guided Alessandra into a private hallway. What did he say to you? He demanded. He knows I'm important to you. He tried to turn me. She met his gaze. He mentioned your grandmother's illness. And he's planning something with the Napoli shipment. Dante's expression darkened. My grandmother died 3 months ago after a long illness. Few people know that. I'm sorry, she said softly. It's how he knew to investigate you. He's been watching for any sign of personal connection. His hands clenched. He's more dangerous than I thought. They stood close in the narrow hallway, the sounds of the gathering a distant murmur. Dante reached up, his fingers hovering near her cheek without touching. You should never have been pulled into this, he said, his voice rough with emotion she hadn't heard before. Yet here I am, she whispered. Something broke in his careful control. He stepped forward, one hand sliding into her hair as his mouth found hers. The kiss was restrained at first, then hungry, as if he'd been holding himself back too long. Alessandra responded with equal fervor, her hands gripping his shoulders. When they broke apart, both breathing heavily, his eyes were dark with desire and conflict. This complicates everything, he murmured. I think it was complicated from the moment you saw me answer that phone call, she replied. A shout from the main room shattered the moment. Dante's expression immediately shifted to alert caution. Stay here, he ordered, then was gone. The villa erupted into controlled chaos. Through the window, Alessandra saw flashing lights approaching the gates, police cars, and unmarked vehicles. Dante returned moments later, his expression grim. Financial police. Someone tipped them off about tonight's meeting. His eyes met hers. We need to leave, now. What's happening? Vannucci betrayed more than just me. He took her hand. There's no time to explain. Do you trust me? The question hung between them. Did she trust this man, dangerous, powerful, yet who had shown her unexpected compassion? Yes, she said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. He led her through a hidden passage behind a bookcase, down stone steps that seemed centuries old. They emerged in a garage where a driver already waited with an SUV running. Your grandmother, Alessandra gasped. We can't leave her. Already handled, Dante assured her, helping her into the vehicle. My people are moving her to a secure medical facility in the mountains. She'll have the same doctors, the same care. As they sped away from the villa, Alessandra watched police storming the gates behind them. What did Vannucci do? Used tonight to set up multiple arrests. The financial police have been building a case against several families, including mine. Dante's jaw tightened, but he miscalculated. I suspected him weeks ago and kept certain information compartmentalized. Where are we going? A property in the mountains, untraceable. They drove for hours, winding higher into terrain that became increasingly remote. Alessandra dozed against the window, exhausted by adrenaline and emotion. She woke to Dante's gentle touch on her shoulder. We're here. The mountain villa was smaller than the coastal property, but no less secure. Stone walls, discreet security cameras, and a breathtaking view of forested valleys below. Inside, it was warm and surprisingly comfortable. Your grandmother will arrive in the morning, Dante said, leading her to a sitting room where a fire crackled. The roads are difficult at night. A staff member brought them food and wine, then discreetly disappeared. For the first time, they were truly alone, without business or crisis between them. I need to know the truth, Alessandra said finally. All of it. Why me? Why did you notice me that night? Dante was quiet for a long moment, staring into his wine. When he looked up, his guard had dropped completely. My grandmother raised me after my parents were killed in a family conflict, he began. She was Neapolitan, from the same village as your grandmother. She used to speak to me in dialect when she didn't want others to understand, teaching me that knowledge is power, that secrets kept us safe. He set down his glass. When I heard you on the phone that night, speaking that same dialect with such native fluency, it transported me. Then I saw your grief, so raw and familiar. So you investigated me, yes, and discovered your connection to Naples, to a family that once had ties to mine generations ago. His eyes held hers. I didn't plan to involve you in my world. I only meant to help you reach your grandmother, perhaps as a way of honoring my own. But then I saw how perceptive you were. How quickly you understood the currents beneath words. In my world, that's rare and valuable. Alessandra processed this revelation. So our meeting wasn't coincidence. The timing was. The connection wasn't. He moved closer, his voice dropping. What I didn't anticipate was how you would affect me. How seeing you with your grandmother would remind me of everything I've sacrificed for this life. And what have you sacrificed? She asked softly. Normalcy. Trust. The ability to care about someone without calculating the risk. His hand found hers. Until you. The confession hung in the air between them. More intimate than their kiss had been. Benucci saw it, she realized aloud. He called me your weakness. Yes, Dante's grip tightened. And in my world, weakness gets exploited. It gets destroyed. Is that what I am to you? A weakness? His eyes met hers, dark and intense. You're the first thing I've wanted for myself in years. The first person who's seen me. Not just what I represent. Before she could respond, his phone rang. The conversation was brief, his expression shifting from concern to relief. Your grandmother has been safely transferred. She's resting comfortably. He hesitated. The doctors say her condition is deteriorating faster than expected. Days at most. Tears filled Alessandra's eyes. I need to be with her. You will be. First thing tomorrow. His thumb brushed away a tear that escaped down her cheek. I'm sorry. For which part? She asked. Pulling me into your dangerous world. Using my grandmother to secure my help. Or making me feel things for you that I shouldn't. All of it, he said honestly. And none of it. Because without those choices, you wouldn't be with your grandmother now. And I wouldn't have found the one person who makes me question everything I've built. He stood, offering her his hand. You should rest. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges. As she took his hand, Alessandra realized they had crossed a boundary from which neither could return. She had glimpsed the man beneath the power, and he had revealed vulnerabilities he showed to no one else. Whatever came next would transform them both. Morning brought mountain mist and clarity. Alessandra woke to news that her grandmother was settled in the medical wing of the villa, a fully equipped facility Dante had never mentioned. The old woman looked frailer than before, but her eyes brightened when she saw Alessandra. Mia cara, she whispered, reaching out a thin hand. Alessandra sat beside her, speaking softly in their shared dialect. They talked of home, of memories, of the village where generations of their family had lived. Her grandmother drifted and out of sleep, each waking period shorter than the last. During one lucid moment, the old woman studied her face. He cares for you, she said unexpectedly. Who? Your Dante. I see how he watches you when he thinks no one notices. Alessandra felt heat rise to her cheeks. He's not my Dante. Her grandmother's smile was knowing. Not yet, perhaps. She squeezed Alessandra's hand. I worried when I saw him with you. Men with such power are dangerous. But now I see he has honor. How can you tell? He speaks to me as a person, not a burden. He remembers the names of the nurses. And most importantly, her eyes twinkled. He looks at you the way your grandfather looked at me, like you are the sun, and he has been too long in darkness. Later that afternoon, Dante found Alessandra on the terrace, wrapped in a shawl against the mountain chill. Your grandmother is resting, he said, joining her at the stone railing. The doctor says she's comfortable. Thank you. She studied his profile. For everything you've done for her. He nodded once, then changed the subject. Benucci's betrayal runs deeper than I thought. He's allied with the Calabrian families, using the port investigation as cover for a larger move against several territories, including mine. What will you do? His expression hardened. What's necessary? Will there be violence? I prefer strategy to bloodshed, he said carefully. But in my world, the two often intersect. She turned to face him fully. And where do I fit in this strategy? Am I still just a translator? A connection to the past? Or something else entirely? Something shifted in his eyes, vulnerability, desire, conflict. You've become the unexpected variable, Alessandra. The factor I didn't account for. Because I'm a weakness. Because you make me want things I've denied myself. His voice dropped. A different life. A future not dictated by obligation and power. Before she could respond, his security chief appeared. His expression urgent. Sir, we have a situation. Venucci's men have been spotted in the village below. Dante's demeanor changed instantly. All softness vanishing. Secure the perimeter. Double the guards on the medical wing. He turned to Alessandra. Stay with your grandmother. Don't leave her side. Hours passed intense vigilance. Alessandra sat with her grandmother, who slept peacefully, unaware of the danger surrounding them. Outside, she heard increased activity, vehicles arriving, men taking positions. Near midnight, the doctor came to check vitals. His expression was gentle, but resigned. It won't be long now, he told Alessandra softly. Hours, perhaps. She's not in pain. Tears filled her eyes. Thank you for your kindness. Don't thank me, he replied. Mr. Salvatore insisted on the best care possible. He's been quite specific about her comfort. When the doctor left, Dante appeared in the doorway. Despite the crisis unfolding around them, he'd come to check on her. How is she? He asked quietly. Peaceful. The doctor says it's time. Alessandra's voice broke. I don't want her to go, but I don't want her to suffer. He crossed to her, taking her hand. Death with dignity is a blessing many don't receive. Your presence is her final comfort. They sat together in silence, watching the gentle rise and fall of the old woman's chest. Outside, the security situation continued. But in this room, time seemed suspended. Near dawn, her grandmother opened her eyes one last time. Alessandra, she whispered. I'm here, Nana. The old woman smiled faintly. Be brave, mia cara. Find your happiness. Her gaze shifted to Dante. Take care of her, she murmured in dialect. With my life, he promised in the same tongue. She nodded once, satisfied, then closed her eyes. Minutes later, her breathing slowed, then stopped altogether. Alessandra felt the moment her grandmother's spirit left. A subtle shift in the air, a peace that descended in the midst of grief. Dante's arm around her shoulders was the only thing keeping her upright. As the sun rose, bringing golden light through the windows, Alessandra finally spoke. What happens now? We honor her wishes. She'll be laid to rest in the village cemetery, beside your grandfather. His voice was gentle. When it's safe. And when will that be? His expression hardened. Soon. Venucci's men retreated at dawn. But this isn't over. He won't stop until he has what he wants. Which is my territories, my influence. His eyes met hers. And now you. She stiffened. Me. Why? Because he knows you matter to me. That makes you both leverage and target. Dante's grip on her hand tightened. I won't let him use you that way. In that moment, looking at this complex, dangerous man who had shown her both ruthlessness and tenderness, Alessandra made her decision. I want to help you stop him, she said firmly. Surprise flickered across his face. This isn't your fight. He made it mine when he threatened my grandmother's care, when he tried to use me against you. Her eyes held his. I'm not naive, Dante. I know who you are, what you do. But I've seen how you lead, how you protect what's yours. And if I consider you mine to protect, he asked, his voice rough with emotion, then protect me by letting me stand beside you, not behind you. She straightened her shoulders. I have skills you need. I understand this world better than you think. Something like pride crossed his features. You continue to surprise me, Alessandra Ricci. Good, she said, because Venucci has underestimated us both, and that will be his downfall. 6 months later, Naples glittered beneath a summer sky. From the terrace of the restored villa, Alessandra watched boats dotting the Mediterranean, their white sails bright against the blue. So much had changed since that winter night, when a phone call altered her life's trajectory. Her grandmother rested peacefully in the village cemetery, her grave marked by a simple but elegant stone that Dante had commissioned. The inscription read, She taught us the language of love transcends all others. Behind her, the villa hummed with preparation for tonight's dinner. The first time Dante would formally introduce her to his extended family circle. not as his translator or assistant, but as the woman who held his heart. Footsteps approached, and she felt his presence before his arms wrapped around her waist. Having second thoughts, Dante murmured against her hair. She leaned back into his embrace. About you. No. About navigating a dinner with 3 generations of Salvatores. Possibly. His chuckle was warm against her neck. They already respect you. After what happened with Vannucci, your reputation precedes you. The confrontation with Vannucci had ended not with bloodshed, but with brilliant strategy. Using Alessandra's understanding of regional dialects and cultural nuances, they had identified weaknesses in his alliances. One by one, Dante had peeled away Vannucci's supporters until he stood alone. His betrayal exposed, his power base crumbled. The final meeting had been tense but decisive. Vannucci, once arrogant, found himself outmaneuvered by the woman he had dismissed as merely Dante's weakness. You underestimated us both, Alessandra had told him calmly across the negotiation table, a common mistake men make when they see only what they expect to see. Vannucci now lived in exile, stripped of territory and influence, a more effective punishment than death in their world. His fate served as both warning and testament to Dante's evolving leadership style. Strategic rather than brutal, forward-thinking rather than vengeful. What are you thinking about? Dante asked, drawing her back to the present. How different things are now. She turned in his arms. Your business operations are more legitimate than ever. Your family relationships are healing, and somehow, I've gone from serving drinks to helping restructure a multi-generational empire. You've brought balance I didn't know I needed, he said, his dark eyes serious. The business changes were inevitable. The old ways are too vulnerable in a digital world. But the way I lead, the way I think about the future, that's your influence. She touched his face, tracing the lines that had softened over months. And us, are we inevitable too? Instead of answering, he reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. I was going to wait until after dinner, but he opened it to reveal a ring, elegant and understated, with a diamond that caught the fading sunlight. Alessandra Ricci, he said softly. You walked into my world as a translator, but became my compass. Will you build this future with me, as my wife? Tears blurred her vision. Yes, she whispered. Yes. The ring slid onto her finger, a perfect fit, like everything he arranged. His kiss was tender, full of promise, and shared understanding of the complex world they navigated together. Later that evening, the family gathered in the formal dining room. Cousins, aunts, uncles, respected advisors. Alessandra, wearing a deep green dress that complemented the ring now gracing her hand, stood beside Dante as he made the announcement. The celebrations were joyous, with toasts in multiple dialects and languages. Through it all, Dante kept her close, his hand often finding hers beneath the table. Near midnight, as the gathering continued, Dante's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, then answered with a simple, Salvatore. Alessandra watched as he listened, his expression shifting to concern. When he hung up, he turned to her. There's a situation at the Naples warehouse, he said quietly. Nothing serious, but I should handle it personally. I'll come with you, she said immediately. His smile was warm with appreciation, always ready for action. Always ready to watch your back, she corrected. In the car, she reached for his hand. Do you ever regret it, bringing me into this life? He considered her question with the thoughtfulness she'd come to expect. I regret the danger it sometimes puts you in. I regret that our children will be born into a complicated legacy. His fingers tightened around hers. But I will never regret finding you, never regret loving you. As they approached the warehouse district, Alessandra's phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but she answered anyway. Pronto, she said automatically in Italian. The voice on the other end spoke rapidly in Neapolitan dialect. One of their dock managers reporting a shipment discrepancy. She responded fluently, asking precise questions that identified the issue immediately. When she hung up, she found Dante watching her with that same intensity she'd first noticed months ago at the restaurant, like he was seeing something precious and rare. What? She asked. That night you answered your phone in Italian, he said softly. I knew then, though I couldn't admit it even to myself. Knew what? He brought her hand to his lips. That I'd found the one person who could understand all my languages, the words I speak, and those I don't. She smiled, the ring on her finger, catching the lights of the city they now ruled together, not through fear, but through respect and strategic vision. Ti amo, she whispered. Più della vita stessa, I replied. More than life itself.